All right. It's Wednesday, 11:30 a.m., and I'm parked right across the street from the Piccolo Motel. I've been waiting for my wife of 3.5 years to show up. According to what I found out, she's supposed to meet Glenn Eversham in room 145 at noon today. Glenn was one of her old high school boyfriends, and a guy I know quite well. In fact, Glenn, until lately, has been one of my friends. But then isn't that how these things so often go? Glenn was Ellie's first serious boyfriend. Ellie is supposed to marry me, but now I'm uncertain. They were together throughout high school. He was her first intimate partner, right after graduation. I heard the story that night as he boasted about their encounter. He owned a large Chrysler truck with a long bed and an extended cab, and he had a cap over the bed. He stored blankets and various items in the cabin bed. Glenn was always prepared. Yeah, the bastard told us all about how he did it. He told us one night after we all got off work. It was the summer right after graduation. We were out back behind this tavern. It was called the Whiplash back then. Since then, it's changed hands 3 or 4 times, each time getting a new name. It's a furniture outlet. Now I can hear him like it was yesterday. He'd said I met up with her after prom. She had switched from her prom dress to a black Harley-Davidson shirt and some really short cutoff jeans. She looked beautiful with her long, curly brown hair flowing down her back, striking green eyes, and long lashes. She had a petite figure and a firm figure. I told her we were going to Jed Nelson's after prom party, but I wanted to stop off for a few minutes first. I told her there was something I wanted to say to her. I kind of hinted that I was going to ask her to marry me. The text requires editing for explicit content and to match the style of Jordan Group. Here is the revised version. She had already had too much to drink, making it easy to mix a little something extra into her beverage. Soon she was full of energy and ready to dance. I helped her out of her jeans, admiring her form. It was clear she hadn't been with anyone before. Despite her age, she seemed almost untouched, with only the slightest hint of maturity, given her inexperience. It took some effort and patience on my part to become intimate with her. I started gently, but as the moment intensified, I couldn't wait any longer, and we became one. She initially resisted, but as I persisted, she eventually yielded. Her cries and moans indicated her change of heart. Glenn adjusted his trousers before he continued. You guys know I'm not lacking. Well, she lost her composure. I tell you, after a bit more time, she was very affectionate. I was very satisfied. Afterwards, she sat on the blanket and cried. She didn't speak. She just cried. I knew I'd made a big impression. Finally, she looked at me and asked what it was I was going to say. I'd forgotten. So I told her that I'd enlisted in the Navy and would be leaving the end of the next week. I asked her to wait for me. She stopped crying and told me she'd think it over. After that, I took her home, kissed her goodnight, and left. Then I took the bus out of town. We never did get to Jed's party. Oh, I remembered him telling us his stupid story. I was there hanging on the fringe like I always did. It broke my heart to hear it. Glenn, Ellie, and I grew up together, attending the same schools from grammar through high school. Glenn was the quintessential all-American boy with charm, wealth, athletic potential, and the attention of all the girls. Despite his advantages, he never fully capitalized on them. He tried out for the football team, but didn't make it. The same happened with basketball and baseball. He struggled to hit. He always had an excuse for football. He blamed the coach's attitude. In basketball, he complained about the aggressive play from smaller players, and in baseball, he claimed the umpires made unfair calls. Still, he always got the girls. He was voted prom king our senior year, and in the yearbook he was voted guy most likely to be remembered. I went out for some sports too. Oh, my name's Wyatt Templeton. Yeah, I went out for soccer. Made the team too. I skipped basketball, but made the volleyball team. And in the spring, I made varsity lacrosse all 4 years. I suppose it was a matter of build. Glenn was a big, strong guy. He lifted weights and stuff. Me? I'm skinny. Always been skinny. I couldn't compete with the bigger guys in football. But man, I could run. In the winter, Coach found out I could leap to that. Got me on the volleyball squad. And of course, lacrosse was my shtick. I played midfield. Yep. Glenn got the girls. And somehow he got the glory. All I got was a lot of letters. Glenn majored in partying all through high school. And he was a master at it. I wasn't so gifted. First, my mom and dad had 5 kids, so personal cars and trucks just weren't on the menu. Though I didn't get many dates, I always got to borrow my mom's rusted-out Cavalier if I needed a car. Oh, did Glenn join the Navy? Of course not. Nobody believed that. Once we got out of high school, Glenn was off to Penn State. His parents had the money. I stuck with the academics in high school and got a partial scholarship to the local state university. It didn't take me very far. I had to promise to teach in state for 3 years. So I ended up being a public school teacher. Being a school teacher means taking a vow of poverty. Don't know why, but I've stayed with it. I guess it's because I like kids. Glenn graduated Penn, went to law school, and ended up with a big law firm in the city. He says he makes gobs of money now, 5, maybe 10 times as much as me. I check my watch. 11:40 won't be long now. I'll find out one way or the other. Do I have a wife and a family or not? This sucks. This really sucks. So Glenn went away to Penn State, and I stayed home. I'd always had a thing for Ellie. That's Ellie. Colleen Templeton, Nick Cochrane. Ellie graduated and went to community college where she picked up some classes in computer programming and in doing things with software. I never understood any of that. Computers to me are like my car. I know where the gas goes, how to start it up, and I have enough savvy to know if it isn't the brakes. I'm supposed to just turn the radio up when I hear something I don't like. Oh, for sure. I've read all the books and pamphlets on automotive maintenance. I know how the damn things work, but cars to me are like plumbing. Trying to fix it only makes it worse. I remember when we first moved in our house. Ellie needed a dishwasher and a new sink and countertop. I read up, bought the hardware, and decided to install all the stuff myself. It shouldn't have been that hard. Just turn off the water, take a thingy, and cut the pipes back. Solder in new pipes, and we'd be all set. I tried it. I really did. I just couldn't get the damn copper tubing to stop leaking. Ellie called Daddy. That's her dad. He came down and took care of it. I remember Daddy hit me on the shoulder and praised me for trying. Ellie made a pot of coffee. We all had a cup while she told me how proud of me she was for caring enough to bother. I felt stupid. I just couldn't do anything right. But in a way, I felt good too. I liked the praise. Glenn had gone off to Penn State. He made a name for himself. He became president of his fraternity and a cheerleader for the Nittany Lions. I made a name for myself too. After my freshman year, I was on the dean's list every semester. I did that and worked part-time jobs all year too. Glenn returned home each summer to enjoy the beach where he surfed and charmed numerous women. Me, I scored too. I'd been trying to get a date with Ellie. It was the summer between our freshman and sophomore years. She and I had always been friends, kind of talking and hanging buddies since childhood. To be honest, I'd always loved her. I kissed her once when we were in high school. I remember she blushed. I nearly shit my pants. Imagine me having the nerve to kiss Ellie Cochrane. It was like me scaling Mount Everest. She blushed. Then she kissed me right back. But then she made me promise not to tell Glenn. And that made me feel sad. I'd almost gone and done something stupid just before she made me promise. I'd almost told her I loved her. What a fool I was. How about my big date with Ellie? She finally agreed to go out with me. Well, scratch that. I finally got up the nerve to ask her out. She said yes. There was this really fancy seafood restaurant way out in the country. It was called the Seaman's Harvest. I thought I'd take her out to eat someplace special, and then we'd go back to the city to see a play. Cats had come to the city, and I really thought that could be cool. Remember I said I didn't know much about cars? I'd bought a used Hyundai. It was high mileage, but the salesman said it ran like a charm. He said there was probably another 100,000 in her. I bought it, and for 2 weeks it ran great. I picked Ellie up. God, she looked marvelous. She had on a pale blue mini dress, skin tone, nylons, and high heels. Ellie's 5'6". I'm 5'11", Glenn. 6'4". Her heels made her slightly taller than me. I felt a little self-conscious, but then I always felt self-conscious around Ellie. Look, I could talk the flowers off a ceramic plate most of the time, but around Ellie, I could never complete a sentence. I'd end up looking in those big green eyes and just freeze. She'd smile at me, and I'd wilt. I went to her door, talked to her mom and dad while Ellie picked up her wrap. I walked her to the car, helped her in, and we took off. I guess we got about 2/3 of the way to the restaurant when my new used Hyundai expired. It just stopped. I popped the hood, got out, looked underneath, and stood there. I didn't have a clue what was wrong. Ellie got out and looked underneath too. Ellie smiled at me. Broken jaw. I had reservations for this restaurant. I had $60 tickets, 2 cats, and my car died. I looked back at her. Yeah, think so. She reached in her pocketbook, pulled out her cell, and called Daddy. Daddy got there about a half hour later. He roped an old tire to the front of his car and pushed us back to their house. I sat in my car all alone and stared while he pushed. Ellie wrote in her daddy's car while he pushed. I felt like a piece of shit trapped between 2 slices of bread. We got back to Ellie's, had barbecue with her mom, dad, and little brother. Then we watched an old movie on TV. She told me later, while we were watching Robert Redford kiss Jane Fonda, she'd already seen Cats. Glenn had taken her to New York, where they saw it on Broadway. That was my big date with Ellie. But I checked my wristwatch again, 11:45. I wondered what I was doing. I guess I'd always known that sooner or later, Glenn would come and collect his prize. I just thought maybe Ellie had put Glenn in her rearview mirror. I guess I just thought wrong. I suppose I should have known better. I remember when Ellie and I got married. I remember how I got her to agree to be my wife after that first date. That didn't work out. She agreed to try again. It was a little later in the summer, and all the town carnivals had started up. Gee, I remember the year before when Ellie had won our town's beauty contest. That was in our senior year. She'd been crowned town queen on the second night of the carnival. I remember it had rained. Glenn was supposed to be there, but he'd stayed at the beach. I was her escort. Oh, I know. I only got the job by default. She really wanted Glenn. She never said so. But I knew a guy knows those things. Like I said, it rained. It didn't just rain. It was a major downpour, and everything got soaked. Ellie had brought some regular clothes, but for the parade and coronation, she bought a special outfit, a real pretty white mini dress. Well, the sky opened up in a matter of minutes. Ellie got drenched. Her pretty mini dress was made of this thin linen or cotton or something. She got wet. Everybody could see right through it. And she was up on this platform. I played stupid. I ran off the platform, grabbed an older man's raincoat. Older people, it seems, are always prepared. I ran back up and covered her up as fast as I could. To my chagrin, the wooden platform was painted with some kind of high-gloss enamel. And what with the rain, it was slippery as hell. I got the raincoat over Ellie and then fell backwards. Ass over tin cup. I fell right off the platform into the wet grass below. Man, I don't know what hurt worse, my body or my pride. I just sat there in the wet grass and watched. I was too embarrassed to go back up. Ellie sat on her throne and accepted the crown and scepter. She never looked at me, but she had this big grin on her face. All I can say is how gracious and beautiful she looked. but I thought she was kind of laughing at me too. Later, when the rain stopped, we walked around the grounds. Her dress had dried out, and no one could see through it anymore. Of course, my tan levis were all grass-stained, and my shirt was covered in mud. She looked like who she was. The town princess. I looked like who I was. The town's fool. We walked up and down where the games were. We went over to where they were selling the pit beef and French fries. I bought her a pit beef. I bought her a funnel cake and some ice cream too. Later, I took her home. She thanked me and kissed me on the cheek. That was kind of a date, I guess. We dated some more after my car fiasco. Nothing special. Just the movies, a picnic, a trip to the state park for a swim and some hot dogs. I thought that summer was special. Near the end of that summer, Glenn showed up for about a week. He took Ellie out every night. As far as she was concerned, I'd ceased to exist. Glenn ever saw him. I hate that son of a bitch. No. My watch said 11:50. It won't be long now. How did I get Ellie to agree to marry me? That's a wonder. I know everyone's heard of one man. Dog's the kind of dog that will attach itself to one person and stay faithful to that one person all their lives. I suppose I'm something of a one-woman man. Sure, I've dated other girls, but I always ended up comparing them to Ellie. And Ellie always won men pleasure themselves. I'm not sure who other men imagine during these moments. Some might envision film or adult film celebrities. Throughout my life, whenever I've engaged in this personal activity, my thoughts have been solely of Ellie. Everyone daydreams. And men are no exception. Typically, daydreams revolve around being a conquering hero or a suffering hero. For me, whether triumphant or enduring, the central figure was always Ellie, and she was always flawless. How did I get her to agree to marry me? From the time our first summer interval ended until my senior year, Ellie and I sort of dated off and on. I never had much money, so virtually all our dates covered things that were affordable. We did things like demolition derbies, tractor pulls, carnivals, the apple festivals, minor league baseball games, the state fair horse shows. Ellie has always been big regarding horseback riding. I like to ride too, but it's more like a religion for her than just a casual pastime. Ellie always had a horse of her own. I could never afford one. Glenn always had one, though. Oh yeah, I took her to church every chance I got. Sure, it's a cheap date, but I got to show her I had character. We're both Methodists, they say. And I believe them, that all Methodists ever like to do is sing and eat. I know one thing. Ellie has a beautiful voice. Now that we're married, she's in the church choir. She looks angelic when she wears her choir robe. God, this can't be happening to me. I asked Ellie to marry me. It was in the fall of my senior year. Ellie had already finished school and had a position with a local software company. She traveled the county repairing messed-up computers. She'd started writing her own programming, and she'd even begun inventing her own games. Don't ask me to explain any of that. I already explained my position on technology. Glenn was in his senior year at Penn State. He'd been a consistent thorn in my side all through college. He'd be away almost all the time. Then he'd come home, ask Ellie out, and she'd go out with him. I felt like the perennial backup. Glenn returned home for Thanksgiving during our last year of high school, and he wasn't alone. He introduced us to Marcia Ashcroft, a stunning girl with long blonde hair, an attractive figure, hazel eyes, and a captivating presence. Glenn was proud to present Marcia to his family and friends, announcing their plans to wed shortly after his graduation. They had already set a date for the occasion. Everybody, we all congratulated the happy couple. Ellie gave Glenn and Marcia both congratulatory kisses, and so did I. Well, I shook Glenn's hand as soon as Glenn and Marcia absconded. I went to work. I believed at last. No more Glenn. Ever. Now it was my time. In truth, there were other guys, but I was pretty sure after Glenn, I was Ellie's number one. I went to the mall, bought a ring, and planned my pitch. I thought I'd do it at her house. I went over. Her parents had a big modern house with a beautiful club cellar. I thought I'd get her downstairs where I'd pop the question. Her brother was in high school, so I figured he'd be out of the house. It was a Friday night. I got Ellie and talked her into going downstairs where we could play video games. That was always an easy sell since she usually won. We went down. Her parents and brother were upstairs. We walked back to the game room and sat on the couch. The big TV was right across from us. I got down on one knee and pulled out the box with the ring in it. I opened the tiny box and took out the ring. I said, "Ellie." She interrupted me. "Oh no, you're not." I was kind of stunned. I thought, oh no, she was going to blow me off. I said, "Well." Ellie pulled me on the sofa and said, "Kiss me, blockhead." So I kissed her. As we kissed, she began to undo my shirt. By the end of our first kiss, she had removed both my regular shirt and shirt. My hands were on her hips. She was still fully dressed, and she began to kiss my chest. Her hands roamed across my torso. I was becoming very aroused. After several more kisses, she leaned back on the sofa and fixed her gaze on me, a mix of staring and glaring as she said, "Well," I moved closer and began to unfasten her light green blouse, the color reflecting her eyes. Once I reached her waist, I unhooked her bra. Relieved to find it was a front closure. I had seen images online, but this was my first real-life encounter. They were the most stunning I had ever seen. Modest in size, but perfectly formed with light brown circles and darker tips that responded as I gently caressed them with my hands and thumbs leaning in. I kissed them softly, feeling elated. Just then, her brother began descending the stairs. He had only taken 3 steps when Ellie shouted, "Vernon, get back upstairs." His name was Vernon. Then I heard her father yell even louder, "Vernon, get back up here." Ellie drew me closer. She loosened my belt and jeans. She sat up and tugged my jeans and boxers down to my ankles. I observed as she removed her slacks and undergarments, which were plain white cotton. I shook off my shoes and removed my pants completely. There we sat with no clothes on the sofa, in the game room in her parents' basement, while her mom, dad, and brother were all upstairs. Their voices were clear as day. That's the night I matured. I was 21 years old, and I'd never been intimate. Yes, I was inexperienced. It was the most amazingly wonderful night of my life. And hers too, I thought. We went slowly. We kissed and snuggled and hugged. We cautiously explored each other's bodies, first with our hands, and then with our lips. I believed she was inexperienced. I'd heard Glenn's tales, but that evening she seemed as nervous as I felt. In literature, they often refer to the act crudely. I prefer to think of it differently. This was affection, genuine and profound. I moved closer to her and tenderly kissed her. Glenn had mentioned she was nearly hairless, and he was correct. As I continued, she became more responsive. I gently caressed her, being mindful of her comfort. It became clear that she was quite delicate. Doubts about Glenn's account crossed my mind. Could she really be this untouched? She seemed a bit tense at first, but gradually relaxed. I used my hand to softly touch her, while being careful not to cause any discomfort. When I sensed any unease, I immediately ceased. Ellie took hold of my head, guiding me to face her. We lay on the sofa with me above her. She whispered, "I want to be closer to you." I thought, had she read my mind? That's what I just thought about myself. I tried to get closer to her, but there was a mismatch in size that made it difficult. I noticed her flinch slightly as well. She whispered, "I know it'll hurt, but I want you to be the one to do it." I persisted, despite my fear. I didn't want to cause her any harm, but my excitement was building. I kept my emotions in check. I began to move my body in a way that allowed for intimate contact without full penetration. Occasionally, I adjusted my position for a deeper connection. I tried to distract my mind, worried about climaxing prematurely and spoiling the moment. After several careful movements, I was able to achieve a partial but gentle entry. She tensed and recoiled initially, but gradually it seemed she was getting used to the sensation. I hoped as much. I withdrew and gently moved closer once more. With each attempt, I progressed a bit further. She let out soft, pain sounds and clutched at my shoulders. I continued to kiss her, though it was difficult. She bit her lip. I was aware it must be uncomfortable for her. I don't know how long it lasted, but eventually I had to release. I felt her tremble. Then she stilled. She began to cry softly. I confessed. Tears came to my eyes as well. I noticed a small trace of blood and pondered its significance. We lay there. By then, we were side by side. We just laid there, hugging each other. I kept kissing her face and her head. She kept running her hands up and down the sides of my body. After another long time, we sat up. Ellie looked at me with this incredibly serious expression, and then she said, "Let me see the ring." I found my pants and got the ring out of the box and held up it for her. She held out her left hand. I guess it was her left hand. She said, "Put it on." I did. The diamond looked small, just a little more than a quarter carat, but I thought it kind of shimmered and glowed in the soft light of the end table lamp. She turned her hand this way and that she looked at me. "This means no more. No more for you." I didn't know what she meant. What I said. She gave me this gravely expressive look. "From now it's you and me. Just us. No one else." Hell, I thought there never had been anyone else. Not for me anyway. I told her. "Glad you're all it's ever been." She smiled. "I know. It's been like that with me too." At the time, I didn't understand what she meant. Her too. I'm still not sure. A few minutes later, we got dressed and went upstairs to see her mom and dad. Ellie showed them the ring. They didn't look exactly happy. I'd say they looked more relieved than happy. I thought I knew why once. Now I'm not so sure anymore. That was how it began. Ellie and I were official. We were an item. We told all our friends. Everyone admired her ring. Everyone was happy for us. Even Glenn. That all happened in November. We were young, in love, and oblivious to the possibility of complications. She had a good job. She could even do a lot of her work from home. I was on my way. I'd majored in math and in education. Math teachers were at a premium with my grades and my sports background. Getting a teaching job in the county was a no-brainer. A foregone conclusion. We planned to June wedding, but we encountered an unexpected development when two people in love are intimate, often without preventive measures. It's natural for certain outcomes to arise. By mid-January, we realized we were expecting a new addition in about 7 months. We rescheduled the wedding for March. Our first little surprise arrived in July, and we named her Jenny. That same week, I secured a position teaching middle school math in the county, and was also recruited to assist with the girls' JV soccer team at the high school. "That's my watch," said 11:55. Pretty soon, my world. All my dreams, all my happily ever after fantasies could come tumbling down. My Ellie would show up and meet Mr. Big Shot Glenn. Ever see him? I'd read all her emails. I knew what was about to happen. Oh, those emails. Those darn emails. Why had she left her email accounts open? Why hadn't she locked them? She had passwords and secret accounts in abundance. I knew almost nothing about that stuff. This didn't have to happen. I mean, I didn't have to know. Had she left them open on purpose? Did she want me to find out? Was she that dissatisfied with me? Was I that poor a husband? God knows I tried. We didn't have any money, but I tried to compensate for it. I paid attention to her. I told her every day how much I loved her. I tried to give her everything that money couldn't buy. Was it the intimacy? I don't think I'm lacking, but I can't be sure. Ellie is the only girl I've been close to. Truly. Ellie is the only one for me. I've never tried to hurt her or do anything that I thought was degrading. I've always tried to be gentle, firm, but gentle. I saw that Megan Ryan movie, and I saw how a woman can fake ecstasy. I think with Ellie, I know when I succeeded. I've always tried as hard as I could to see that she got her excitement. There have been times when she hasn't wanted sex. When she was well, along with Jenny and Craig, her back ached a lot. I'd give her back rubs. I'd massage her all over. I love touching her. She's all I ever wanted. Oh God, please don't let this be happening. Was I a bad daddy? Jenny's 3 in. Craig is still a baby. Oh yeah, I guess I yell some, but don't all men yell at least once in a while? I pay attention to my kids. I read stories to Jenny. I give her horsey rides. I try to do all the things my parents did for me. I try to be a good daddy. I want to be more like Dad and like Ellie's dad. I work hard around the house. I help with dinner. I do the dishes. I do the lawn. I help with the flowers. I run the vacuum. I do whatever she asks. I do it because I want her to be happy. When Ellie feels bad, I always try to be there for her. I don't run off to the tavern or anything like that. I kiss her every chance I get. I love holding her in my arms when we're in bed. I first noticed her separate Glenn account about 2 months ago. I wasn't suspicious, merely curious. When I opened it, I immediately regretted it. Glenn, that scoundrel Eversham, had asked to meet with her. He claimed he missed her, felt lonely, and was unhappy in his marriage. Needing someone to confide in. What a backstabber. I thought. Then I read Ellie's response. At first, she firmly told him to leave her alone. She didn't curse. She just said she was married. She was busy. And she suggested if he was unhappy, he should talk to Marcia, or if not to his wife, then perhaps a counselor. He kept emailing her. He kept whining and begging. He said he needed someone. He said she was the only one who really understood him. She resisted. That went back and forth for maybe I counted 4 correspondences. But then Ellie changed. Ellie started talking about how she remembered when they were in high school and the fun they had before he got engaged to Marcia. She started remembering things they'd done when I was only on the periphery. In short, she started to break my heart. No. Oh no. Glenn's here. He's at the motel room door. I ducked down in my car so he couldn't see me. What am I worried about? I'm across the parking lot. I observed him. He kept scanning the area. I saw him enter the room. I expected room 145. He stepped out again. Wait. He took out his cell phone. He dialed a number and began talking to someone. It's probably Ellie. I think he's telling her he's arrived. Oh no. My life is falling apart right before my eyes. Please, Ellie, don't come. Why am I so worried? I've seen her emails. She's ready for this. She's already been unfaithful, if not in action, then in her heart. If she doesn't break her vows today, she will eventually. This is heartbreaking. To read it on some screen is awful, but to see it or to begin to see it live in the flesh, up close and personal, well, that's a totally different thing though. Shit, it's 12 o'clock high noon any second now. Look, I've got 2 kids and a third on the way. Yes, Jenny was born in July, 3 years and 2 months ago. Craig came along last October, and lately, Ellie said she's missed 2 periods. That's 3 kids. 3 kids with a lying, cheating bitch. No, I can't say that. Ellie would never. But there he is. He's over there. It's those emails. Those damn emails. I wish I'd never read them. I'll give her credit. At first, she fought him off. Then she sounded interested. Then she'd started talking about his wife, Marcia. Ellie kept at him about his wife. She said things. Neat things like, "What about your wife? Why do you want to do this to her? Wouldn't it be better to talk to your wife? Marcia loves you. I know. You should talk to her, Glenn. You should say something to your wife." He always had an answer. He said she didn't understand him. He said he never loved her. Not like he loved Ellie. He said he thought Marcia was cheating on him. I have to give Ellie credit. She fought Marcia's battles for her. She couldn't have done it better if it had been Marcia herself. It didn't matter. Not in the end. Last week, Ellie caved. She agreed to meet him. And so we're where we are. My marriage, my life. And very likely Glenn and Marcia's marriage will soon be over. Look, I haven't been idle. I talked to my dad about this. He agrees with me. He believes, like I do, that when two people agree to get married, they commit fully to each other. My heart, my soul, my life's treasure and my body are no longer mine. They belong to Ellie. Ellie should understand. I don't want to control her. But she made the same commitment to me. What did she say? No more. No more. Her heart, soul, and body belong to me just as mine does to her. She can't disregard my honor. She can't make me a fool. A betrayed husband. I won't stand for it. I'll pay alimony and child support for the rest of my life. I'll live in poverty, but I won't be betrayed like I checked my watch. It's 12:15. Glenn has been at the door 3 times. Ellie's late. I'm wondering, and I suspect he's wondering too. I hope maybe she won't show. If she doesn't, I'll confront her. I'll ask her about the emails. I'll try to make her see. Make her understand. We can get counseling. I love her so much. I'd rather not live than be without her. Like I thought before, I'm a one-woman man. I can't be without her. Being without her would feel like not existing. Oh, please, Ellie, stay home. Don't show up. But what if she does show? I know the answer to that. If she shows, it's over. I won't accept it. I'll move out. We'll divorce. I won't live like some weak, powerless man. I'm just not made that way. Oh, please, Ellie, don't come back. Jesus, it's 12:20. This is killing me. I've got to find out. I've got to call. I grabbed my cell and punch in Ellie's number. It barely rings one time. It's Ellie. She says yes. Oh, it's you, Wat. Get off the phone. Ellie, what are you doing? Where are you? Wat. What do you mean? You know where I am. I'm home. Jenny's in her playpen in the living room. Craig's upstairs asleep. I'm ironing one of your shirts. Then there's a pause. She asks, where are you? Aren't you supposed to be in class right now? I reply as forcefully as I dare. No, Ellie, I'm in my car. I'm parked on the lot across from the Piccolo Motel. I've been watching Glenn ever see him go in and out the door of room 145, like he's looking for someone. Tell me, Ellie, are you sure you're at home? I listen. There's a moment's silence on the other end of the line. Yes. Damn it. I've caught her. Ellie answers. Wyatt, I want you to hang up your cell phone. I want you to wait there. You know I love you. You certainly know I'd never do anything to hurt you or jeopardize our life together. Trust me. Just wait. Call me and tell me as soon as you see something. Now hang up the damn phone. I did like I was told. I hung up my phone. Okay. I thought I'll give her all rope she needs of the second hand on my watch kept moving. It was 12:30. Something was up at the Piccolo. What could it be now? I watched as 2 people approached the door to room 145. One of them was Marcia Everson. I didn't recognize the other person, but he was a man. He had something under his arm. He started knocking on the door. Holy smokes. Glenn opened the door. The man just handed him some kind of big envelope. Thanks to everyone who took the time to listen to today's stories. If you enjoyed it, please consider liking and subscribing if you haven't already. Feel free to share your thoughts on the events in the comments below. Take care.